what's up, everybody? This is John, and we are here with the episode 28 of Keeping It Local. It is our second all-star panel, and I have some great people to speak with again, and I'm happy to see them all again. Some of them, it's been a while, um, but very happy to see all of you again. To my left, we have Mitch Brendel from Integrity Expediting. In the bottom left is Jeff Snare with Lighthouse Media. And in the bottom right, we have the Long Island Mold guy, Dominic Manieri. Dom, how you
Up,
doing?
everybody? Good, you?
I'm good. I'm
Hey
glad to see
guys.
all of you. Seriously, it's been a
Awesome.
yeah. It's
Good
I
to be
was I was looking
back.
forward to this. All right, so we're just gonna kick it right in. With the big focus on social media today because all of you are doing really great things in social media, and there's a lot of expertise here. So I think this will be cool for anybody that has a business and is thinking about how they want to grow their social media and grow like an organic following and do it right. Or maybe you might need a little bit of assistance.
Yeah.
We have all those things covered today. So I'm going to start it off with just ultimately the power of branding and how to create a strong brand and a memorable business for your marketing purposes. And we could focus on it through social media. And I'll start this off with Dom because the way I found Dom, the Long Island Mole guy, was through Instagram and his presence there. And I thought it was really cool. And I reached out to him and he's like, yeah, I'd love to come on the podcast. So Dom, tell us about how you've gone about creating such a strong presence on social media.
I've been doing it for a long time. My industry or the restoration industry as a whole, here on Long Island is extremely competitive, and I felt I needed to do something to get past that space that nobody else is really doing. You know, the larger companies are doing their thing to focus on their large commercial jobs and the bigger stuff. And I said, I need to find a place. So I became a specialist for mold, and I've been creating content ever since because that's what gets me in front of the people. Again, being so competitive, that means things like AdWords and local service ads. The bids become so high, and these larger companies are throwing thousands and thousands of dollars. It's hard to be competitive if you don't have the same ad budget as them. You could be creative with the ads, but if you want to be competitive in that market, so I said, you know what? I'm going to start creating content, and I'm not going to stop until I start getting noticed. And it's been working. It's catching up and now working for me because I've been doing it for so long.
How many years have you been pumping out the content?
I would say probably 13 years, more so with the mold guy, probably in the last
Wow.
mold guy, probably about 5 years, but I've been coming on real strong with it on the mold end of things in the past year or two.
Okay. Jeff, that makes me want to go right to you because you know this space and the ad space, you know all this stuff. So Dom is posting. Well, Dom, let me ask you, like, how often are you posting? How consistently are you posting?
I'm on every platform every single day. If I'm not posting reels or picture carousels on Instagram, I'll just put stories and save. I try to not do so much on Instagram and make it special as I can every post and not to overload that, but I'll couple it with the stories. I'm a big believer in Google My Business. That's the first place I post every single day. If I don't post anywhere else, it's always there because I believe it's extremely important. YouTube would be second. And then, like I said, I do LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok as well.
Okay. All right. So that's good to know. Jeff, um, when you hear that, like, what are some like obviously Dom's doing some things right. What any advice that you could give like guys like me who are posting and whatnot based on what Dom's doing and everything? Like, what are your insights on all of this?
Yeah, so I it's funny enough, I do a lot of cold calling. I'm shameless with cold calling, and I actually cold called Dom a couple of months ago, and he told me what he's up to, and I said, "Okay, you definitely don't need me." Because he's doing everything under the sun. And John, if you remember going back to our first podcast, which I guess was like last summer,
Mhm.
if we took a couple of sound bites from there, I think I recall saying that the first place I would go is having a website and doing a Google business profile,
Mm,
because that's basically the one-two punch of where people are going to be going and searching for local service-based businesses. So well done, Dom, and of course it sounds like you're just piling it on, posting daily for years and years on end. Uh, no one's going to miss you. Especially,
yeah.
especially for such a niche industry that you're in, with mold remediation. If there's somebody searching for that type of service in your area, they're not gonna have a choice but to see
That's
that.
why I thought of the keyword. I mean, it's
Yeah.
basically what I do and where I am. You
Yeah,
know?
well done. Well done. So yeah, I mean, just to answer your question, John, I think that the first places to be are, online where people are searching for you. That's on Google. So that's having a website, having a Google business profile. If you have budget to spend on running ads to expand your reach beyond, the organic footprint that you have, then absolutely. As much as you feel like you can do. And a lot of times, the more you put in, the more you get out.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, everybody has to kind of balance that line of, the ROI.
Right.
Um, but if you can kind of get that sweet spot, um, like it sounds like Dom has,
It is
you'll
another
end up in
job.
a really
It's
good
like
spot.
having another job doing all of that too.
Hmm.
So,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
mhm.
Mitch, what have you found to be successful with like your social media presence and stuff? Like what's worked for you?
Yeah, I think it's consistency, I would say, is the first thing that comes to mind. We're about a year and a half into our social media exploration. Uh, I mean, the company's been around far longer than that, but it's just something I haven't had the time personally to focus on until one of our newer team members joined about a year and a half ago and asked me like, "Hey, what's going on with our social media? It's really there's nothing out there." I'm like, you know what? It's a good point. It's something I've always wanted to really spend time on, but I just on the development side of the business have been working more on the internal stuff. So when she joined the team, it was like, okay, let's make social media happen. It was about a year and a half ago, and we've just started cranking out some content, and it's been really it's morphed a lot over the year and a half as far as what we're doing and why we're doing it on social media, just trying to be more intentional with it and focusing on our target audiences. Really, who we're finding on social media are the people that are going to refer us. So I want to cater my marketing and my branding and my posts towards the people who are going to send us, because like a homeowner is not going to find us maybe on social media instantly, but there are people who have access to homeowners that would be like, oh, you need this service. And these guys are, go pull up their page, right? And so there aren't a lot of people, any that I know of in our industry that are really, I mean, one or two others that are regular on social media, but I'm trying to get it out there, get the info out,
Hmm.
be informative, but also just available, answering questions and
Yeah.
things like that.
Well, it's funny that what you're talking about with the referral piece because I mean, what we see, what we do, I like when I go on social media, I try as I say this all too often. Try not to be on it too much. Just because it's like, it's a time warp but
Yeah.
what do we all do with Instagram is we're sharing reels. And that is such a key piece of it, what you're saying, because you don't need to necessarily find the customer, but what you need to do is tell a story about something happening. And
Hmm.
then that sister or wife or whoever it is who knows that their friend or family member's having that issue, they share your reel. And it's like, oh, wait, look at what
Yeah.
I just found. These guys are on Long Island. Boom. And
Yep.
it's like a natural built-in referral
Yeah. Yeah.
base.
Yeah.
And then you're off and running at that point. And like you said, it can be organic. And it can just it's like I found all of you organically, like I didn't get an ad or anything. Like you guys just popped up and I wasn't searching for anything. It just happened. Obviously the algorithm picks up on stuff and, probably started figuring out what I was looking for, but it's such a great way to build business without with, I bet you could all of you tell a story about how it's not about one reel. I think people do get hung up on that, where it's like you try and put out this one great piece of content, and then it's like it does diddly
Yeah.
squat. I've done it so many times,
Mhm.
and now I just like my best reel just went. Which one is it? So I did top three sport towns on Long Island, and the criteria was like who has the most pro athletes that have come from their town. It has like
Okay.
135,000 views. Like it's good. Like I've
Nice.
never had a video do this, but and it's gained like I've doubled my following, all from just thinking like, ooh, what's like really shareable. So I guess long-winded version of
Mm,
this is if something is shareable, it's going to get to the person one way or another. It doesn't have to come up in their feed. It's just as good as if someone shares it. And then it's almost like it's like a referral, like how I do my business. So yeah, that's really, really smart. I love that. Um, Jeff, are there any other tips like hacks, things that people can do? And I know you're in this business, so I don't want I feel bad like saying, how do we do this all for free, Jeff? Meanwhile, like if you don't want to do it free, you got money to spend. Jeff is great and he knows what he's doing and he will grow your business
Gotta go and
tenfold.
get some help.
Give away the cow here.
Yeah. But like, since you're a pro at this, what are some other just simple, small tips maybe that you could give for someone who's like building a brand, wants it to be consistent? What could they do to make themselves more present on social media?
Yeah, good question. I think it's really about finding what we call the ICP, which sometimes I even forget the acronym.
Mhm.
It's basically your ideal client persona, I believe it is.
Okay.
So every business has a person that they know that is their target audience. And when you speak to that person directly, you get to your target audience, and when those people start consuming your content, there's something called lookalikes. And basically what you're describing, the algorithm sees that, you know, Mitch is the target and he's consuming certain information. And then there's a whole lot of people online that have an online profile that look just like Mitch. And so more of those people are going to be served the content that is speaking to the consistent and common ICP. So that would be my best advice. And truthfully, sometimes I personally struggle with this. In my industry, coaches, advisors, mentors, they talk a lot about niching down and finding in a very small subset of a particular audience. So yeah, I'm in a marketing agency world. Uh, People don't really advise for me to take on John, Mitch, and Dom all as clients because you're all in different industries. You
Mhm.
all have different problems to solve. You all have different businesses that I need to intimately know and understand. So a lot of folks in my industry says you should only target the mold guys. You should
mm,
solve the problem of the mold guys
Mm.
and go after just them.
Okay.
I don't know why I have the hardest time taking that advice. Um, I don't know if it's just because I don't want to pigeonhole myself into something, and turn away, other perfectly good and perfectly great opportunities. Or I just kind of like to mix it up. I really don't know what it is. But I have a belief that when it comes to digital marketing and advertising, there's a formula that can be applied to everybody, and it's not that Dom's system is a complete unique thing than what Mitch can run. You need to find your target audience. You need to offer them something that they need, and you need to, speak to them and deliver, messaging in a way that it resonates with them.
Mm.
And so, what's really so much different about that in the real estate world versus the mold remediation world? It's figuring out how to answer those questions. But ultimately, if you can get those answers, you can find the people that the business is looking for.
Yeah.
Um, And so
sort of
that's kind
like the
of my theory,
skeleton. Yeah.
a long-winded theory. Yeah.
No, no. Hey, listen, that's what we're here for. We're here for long-winded answers. Well, we wouldn't have much of a podcast if we were just like, yeah, this is what you do. Bye. Um, so then, Dom, I want to switch to you for a second because do you have a piece of content or, a piece of content that you were so surprised at how it did? Did you ever do something that you thought was like, I'm going to put this out there and it got like a crazy amount of responses and you were just totally surprised by that?
Absolutely. I had one piece of content. We were removing somebody's floor, and under the floor, I found a piece of the box that the floor came in. They used it, to try to level out the floor. It had mold on it. It's just a piece of cardboard box, and the thing blew up. I put it up as like a fail type of post. I put fail, and it got several hundred thousand views
Wow.
just because of the little cardboard. And until this day, it was over a year ago. I still get likes every once in a while on it.
Wow.
Wow.
Do you know what it's up to now? Like views and stuff?
Oh no, but while we're on here, I can look and bring it up during the course of conversation.
That's so
And then
funny
other
though.
posts you think they're gonna hit home with people, and it does absolutely nothing.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
I feel like those are the most disappointing, but then like at the same time, the lesson to be learned is you don't necessarily have to, because the times when they hurt the most are when they take a long time too. Like you put a lot into it and then you put it out there and it's like, oh wow, that did absolutely nothing. Like what a waste of time. I wasted 3 hours editing this and the script and all this stuff. And at the same time, like I don't know, you got to wrap your head around what it's at, how it's going to be received in the end, because that is ultimately going to drive how well it did. Like I did one a couple of months ago, and it was just which I thought everybody knew the story. It was a story of Smithtown, like in the bull ride, and
Oh, I
even I
love
still
that
got
one. That was cool.
it's crazy. But like I thought, I figured everybody knows that story about, Richard Smith and the bull. And, even though whether it's true or not, that's still up for debate. I have people telling me it's not true. I got the info from the Kings Park Heritage Museum, whatever. And it's like, I can't believe that people are still talking about this. And then I did another one about Lake Ronkonkoma and the Lady of the Lake. Um, so the I still get comments to it every single day. The AI, it said Ronkonkoma instead of Ronkonkoma. So 80% of comments are like, this guy's obviously not from around here. I'm like, no, he's not, but I bet you wouldn't say that to his face. And then I drop the AI voice name and like, but it creates conversation and it's so silly. Um, but it's like, I didn't plan that. I thought I'd get a couple thousand views. Now it's up to like 80,000 something views already. It's like, how did this happen? It's just so weird. Mitch, you ever have like a crazy, surprising piece of content?
Um, I'm trying to think through. Um, I think the most surprising I think for us was when we first launched on TikTok,
Mm-hmm.
and all of a sudden we got 800 views on something that was totally random, like what's an electrical certificate, and it just a little informative piece, nothing funny, nothing viral or trendy, but like all of a sudden we threw like 5 or 6 videos up on TikTok and we are just watching it like, oh, our views are going up. This is incredible. I don't think we've yet had something that has exploded to that level of so many views. Um, I've had a couple collaboration videos that have been really good where we,
Mm,
shared stories. And I'm taking notes as we're talking here because I don't think I've made things with the idea of it being shareable. I like
mm.
that. I like that a lot. So I'm learning. Thank you.
Yeah, hey, listen, that's part of it.
We're all learning here.
Yeah, well, because that's the Instagram side of it, right? Because that's like, what do I do? I come across a reel that I know one of my friends or family members will laugh at, and I send it over to him. And
Right.
you're
Right.
curating their experience because I don't send like every reel to everybody. Like some people
No.
don't have that kind of humor or this or that. So when you're making something that's highly, now I think about it in terms of like
Right.
highly shareable, like what are they going to want to see or show other people. Um, and then I think there's a rabbit hole where you could then start to make things that are maybe too controversial, and you're trying to get people to like argue about it and stuff, and it's like you don't
Yeah.
want to cross that line. But That is definitely a key a key piece of it there. Yeah, is
Definitely.
being shareable. Jeff, what do you see as far as like the variety of platforms? We know Google obviously is a search engine, so is YouTube. Like as far as the other social media like Facebook, Instagram, do you feel that one is better than the other, or that you know, you're better if you were doing ads, like you're better off using one or the other? Like how do you go about that with your clients at this point? Sorry to put you on the spot. I don't know. That wasn't a prepared
No,
question, but it just made me think.
that's clever, right? Yeah. So I guess, technically speaking, Instagram and Facebook are Meta, so it's kind of all under the same roof, but they operate, as everybody knows, very differently. Typically, when we do set up client ads on the Meta platform, we do run it across Facebook and Instagram, just because they have different kind of ad formats. You've got the feed, and then you've got the reels, and you've got you can be on stories and this and that. So you want to be in as many places as you can, as many lines in the water, as I like to say, as possible. But I do find that when it comes to like true lead generation, and so for those that don't really understand exactly what that means, is like, you know, Dom, the mold guy, wants to run an ad to where people fill out a form or like ask for a free quote, literally raise their hand, say, I want to be a customer of yours.
Hmm.
And so the format of how you build out the ad campaign is specifically lead generation. And so I find that you get the best results through the Facebook specific platform. In the ads manager, there's literally like a ticker on there that counts your leads, and you can set up all these different automations that to respond to them immediately, because getting the lead is only half the battle. Speed to lead is a real thing. Because there's people who are going to be filling out multiples of those forms, and then you got to race to get to them. So pulling in the lead doesn't get you the customer. You've got to have that infrastructure set up where as soon as they come in, there's somebody, or even if it's on automation, even if it's your AI robot, you need somebody reaching out to that customer within 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes,
Mm,
if you really want to capitalize on them.
mm.
So yeah, I would say the best place to go is Facebook, to get your leads, but getting them is half the battle.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
it's important to talk through and really look into under the hood of, what the system is that you have in place, what happens after the lead comes in, who's reaching out, what does that message look like, what offer are you putting out there, and, how you're going to actually lock them in.
Dom, are you doing that follow up yourself? Like, when I'm sure you get a lot of reach outs on Instagram. So are you just like, are you jumping on it yourself? Do you have a system? How's that working for you?
I do it myself. And again, going back to branding, being that I
Very
am
good.
basically the brand, I follow up with, I see somebody that follows me, I reach out to them and say, hey, thanks for following me. If I know that they're local, I say, hey, maybe we can do something together.
Mm-hmm.
So I try to, do any follow-ups, reaching out, just reached out to a local real estate agency that I saw follow me. I said thank you, and I offered, can I come down and speak to the agents, talk about what they can do when
Mm,
they encounter mold on the sale and stuff like that. And they said, sure, give
that's
me a
great.
date, and next month I'll go over there and, talk to those people and just continue to do stuff like that.
That's great. But did you have your hand up, Mitch? Sorry, I couldn't.
No, I was giving him a thumbs up on
Oh.
that. I love it.
Do you are you seeing the same type of influx, Mitch? Like, are you getting leads reaching out through Instagram? Does your team member handle that? Like, what's your process for that?
Yeah, so we're getting most. I'll get like connections through Instagram. Like I'll
Yeah.
have some agents hit me up and send messages over, follow us, people who are going to potentially connect us with their clients when problems come up. On Facebook, I get a lot of direct messages because there's the local moms and dads groups, the local, town groups where, a lot of friends will recommend us on there when people are looking for help. So those groups are great. So we'll get messages and like real like leads coming through on Facebook, but um, on the Instagram side, the connections are where it's really at. And I like what you're saying, Dom. I'm taking notes. Just, I get followers. So I have one of our team members who's running everything. So I'm kind of uh, on it when I'm feeling in the mood, but I know it's gonna be happening. But I think in the past, I've definitely had good responses to, oh, I just got a new follower. They're a really good connection for me. Hey, let's have a phone call, or let's connect, or let me follow your stuff, do the whole follow and like a bunch of your things, but also just a personal reach out like, hey, thanks for following the page. Like, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Hmm.
Right. And who knows what that springs into, might turn into you getting to be on somebody's podcast.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Even a
We all
lowly
dream.
podcast like this. Um, oh, I forgot my question. Darn it. I had what was I going to ask you? I was going to ask both of you. Um, I don't know. It escaped me. That happens all too often lately. Um, it was about follow up and just, well, I guess you could all answer this, and maybe we'll start it with Jeff. When you do get that, do you know your, like, do you have your numbers, your metrics, your KPIs, whatever you want to call them, for the amount of people that you're reaching out to, how many are you getting a connection with, and then ultimately like any business coming from it? Do you have any, I guess, metrics to say that, like every 10 people I follow up with, I get a phone call, etc. Anybody that have any numbers like that they could share? I'll start with you, Jeff, if you have any, because you're
Yeah,
probably.
that's a tough one. And I think maybe this is exactly why people say stick with one industry.
Mm.
Because I think if it's probably that's the big variant is like, th some of those things are nuanced across different industries and niches.
Mhm.
So maybe that's a lesson that I learned today. But yeah, I mean, I think you kind of
Well,
have to
like,
have.
what's your call metric, Jeff? Like, what's your call KPI? Like, how many cold calls are you making before you're like, like connection rate, and then closing rate, like, or appointment setting rate? Like, how many calls do you have to make to get to where you want to be?
Yeah, that's a good question. My day is split across a lot of different actual activities between the sales, the marketing, the admin, the fulfillment, and everything in between. But I usually try to put at least like an hour or two, either one big block or two smaller blocks of time on my calendar to do cold calling.
Mhm.
I'll always start off the day with a list of 20 or 30 people who I know I want to reach out to. Um, and so out of those 20 or 30 people, um, I always get hung up on at least three or four times. That's a given.
Yep.
Um, that's what separates the boys from the men. It's continuing to call after that. Um, and yeah, I'd say, yeah, out of those 20 or 30 calls, I usually get two or three people, four people that are like, "Oh, I'm glad you called. I've been thinking about this. It might be worth, and then I'll usually book a call with, half of those people and I don't know, maybe
It's
another.
a it's a
Maybe I'll
worthwhile
close
endeavor
half of
then.
those or even
Yeah.
a third of those. So, I mean, out of a group of 20 people that I call, I don't know, I'll maybe close one of them in the next month because the sales process is not just a straightforward,
Yeah.
okay, here's my money. I've introduced myself. I've, you know, created a rapport and I've established a need.
Hmm.
And then people go back to their own lives and
Right.
then I have to remind them of what we
Got to
talked about
follow
and
up.
then I have to yeah, so there's a lot of follow up in that
Yeah.
so it's rarely like the same week that I'm talking to somebody that they're actually becoming a client.
Yeah.
um, but every system is a little bit different and I think that speaks to the need of social media and probably a need for me to build my own brand, more than I'm, spending time on some of my clients' brands. Because, if I was out there as often as Dom is, then maybe there'd be more people reaching out to me, and maybe a less of a need for cold calling.
Hmm.
But so this is all kind of what I'm learning, over I've been in business, we've been in business for we're coming up on a year.
Congrats.
And thank you.
Yeah.
And it's been a lot of trials and tribulations and figuring out what works and what doesn't. And sometimes it works,
Hmm.
you know, for a little while and then it doesn't anymore. So it's constant learning and evolving and adapting. Um, but yeah, for whatever reason, I just can't help but pick up the phone and do cold calls is like my main outreach strategy.
Look, that is
Um,
not a bad thing though. I mean, there are people who just would never do it. Like that's like the biggest fear is cold calling. And I think the thing that is nice about it is, if you're, basically what you're feeling is or seeing is every 20 calls, you get a closed sale at some point. So what that tells me is it's scalable, right? Like if you in at some point, you'll probably be in like a more managerial position. You may not be able to do the sales end of it, but you can have someone calling on your behalf making 1,000 dials a day, and now you've just increased your
yeah,
closings, so it's that is to me the hardest thing to do. I've done it myself. It's brutal, and I think real estate agents probably get hung up on more for cold calling than any industry out there because we're also probably some of the most annoying people. Sorry other realtors, but yeah, whatever. Yell at me, I don't care. And that's what I think differentiates Mitch and Dom too at the same time because your businesses are so like they call you because they need you like in the moment. And then like what you were saying, Jeff, it's speed to lead, right? Because there are mole guys, there are expediters. So if they're seeing you, it's like, oh my God, like we need to get, it's always an emergency when you get called. I
Yeah.
feel like, am I wrong about that? Like Dom and Mitch?
No, 100% on. Yeah, that's, I'd say I, I even I even stop asking people, "Hey, thanks for calling. How you doing?" Because they're not doing good when they're
Yeah.
calling me. Like I just gonna say, "Okay, tell me about what's going on."
Hmm.
And that's most of the time why you need us.
Yeah, you're like a therapist at that point. And
Yeah.
Dom, I feel like with you too, like that's a scary thing to find. I feel water intrusion in general to me um
No.
comes across as a very nerve-wracking thing for a homeowner. Like when you have a leak, when you have that water intrusion wherever it's coming in, it's very unsettling. It's like, like losing your heat's one thing, maybe your hot water stops, but having water coming into your house is a really, really unsettling feeling. So, you have to be like I guess how many outreaches are you getting per day and like are you able to answer all of them like and you're doing it all yourself. So what is that like when you're dealing with the customers? I guess we'll go to that question first.
Mm.
It can get hectic. I know for me, it could be quiet 1 minute and the next thing you know, the phone's ringing with lots of concern customers. They found this or they saw that. So I almost get a little anxiety from it because I have to answer everyone. And again, it's almost from one extreme to the other. It'll either be dead or I have a lot of people to tend with. A gentleman yesterday, when you talk about water intrusions, he said, Dominic, I got such an odor in my basement. He didn't know what it was, and I ended up finding he had a waistline leaking water in the wall from the toilets, the showers, the kitchen sink. And he,
Ugh.
can it smell, really bad. And that was what was overwhelming him was that smell. And I'm glad we found it for him. But yes, mostly all the clients are in need or they're in a rush, but you can't really be in a rush with the mold because there's a protocol to follow. Water damage, if we catch it right away, we'll rush over there and dry it out so it doesn't get mold. But once it's become mold, we have to follow the mold law, so we can't really rush it. We can get to you in a timely manner and take care of it properly, but it's not a rushed process.
Right,
Wow.
because it has to get you have to get the tests, you got to send it away, then they got to get the remediation plan, right? Do you want to kind of fill us in on that? I did it a little bit, but
Yeah, in order New York State mold law says that if a homeowner wants to hire a mold remediation contractor, they're first supposed to get a mold assessment first from a different company to test sometimes and also write a mold remediation plan. So we'll have to wait on that. The customer will have to book the inspector, wait on his report, which could take a couple of days. And then once we have the report, now I have the information to provide them with an estimate. And depending on what they're looking at number wise, they may say, I might get a couple more estimates after looking at the price. So it may not all happen right away.
Hmm.
But they're definitely overwhelmed and excited to get it done right away.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely something you don't want going on for a long time once you find it.
No,
All right, thank you for that. Let me shift gears a little bit because I feel like you've all built really great social media brands and like that, again, that's how I found you, all of you, was through Instagram and through your social media, what you were doing. So if you could give some tips and tricks about what you've done to build that customer loyalty, like what you've done to build your personal brand and build that loyalty, I think it would be really helpful. And we'll start with you again, Dom. We'll go
I
through.
feel that being yourself is very important. Don't pretend to be somebody else because if you're building your brand, you want people to know you. So don't be fake and don't do things that you think people are going to be happy about just to appease them. Do what you believe in. Content's an art form. So you're creating the art form. If people like it, you want them to like it, but don't get discouraged if they don't. Stay consistent. Don't give up. Just because somebody doesn't like something doesn't mean you can't come back the next day with the next punch and get them. So don't ever give up and stay consistent and be yourself.
Like that. Jeff, what about you?
Yeah, those are great. I would say um, kind of putting yourself out there as the industry expert.
Mhm.
That's a big one. Uh, there's so many folks out there doing the same things that, we're each doing. And in order to set yourself apart from the next guy, you have to give value for free, basically. Um, you have to earn somebody's trust and business before they even give it to you, which is challenging. And that's kind of, the day and age that we're living in, I think, is everybody has a looking glass to look at the business and know who you're going to be dealing with and what they're all about and every experience that every customer has ever had, through Google reviews and see everything's out there, to look at and to analyze and to evaluate and decide, do I even think I would like this guy as a person? It's like there's so many levels to it
Yep.
now. Um, and you could probably lose a customer
Mhm.
just from the way that you speak or the way that you present yourself. But I think, like along the lines of what Dom said is, putting yourself out there on the line for people to say, all right, I want to work with this guy, or I'll pass on this guy, but people can make a decision, before they even are standing toe to toe with you, just
Mhm.
through your online presence.
Yeah,
And I think that's what makes it so important to have a close eye and a strategy on how you're going to, promote yourself and put yourself out there to the public.
nice. Mitch, do you want to add to that? Do you have anything else? And if you don't worry, I'll give you the next
Yeah,
question.
I'll add a little something to it. I mean, I definitely
Sure.
agree that what the guys are saying is totally right on. For me, I would also add find the balance between why am I even doing this and just do it, right? There's like part of it that's like just do it. Just get on, just post stuff, right? But then there's also don't just be on social media because everybody's telling you have to be on social media. Have a plan, have a strategy, have some goals in mind so that way you're doing it, yes, but you're also doing it with a purpose, with intentionality, so that way you stick with it, right? So that's going to help you, where am I going with this? Am I just throwing stuff out there and hoping something, makes sense? No, I'm trying to make things that are shareable, right? Or I'm trying to educate the world. And that's, setting yourself apart as the expert doesn't mean you have to go on and say I'm the best at what I do. It's let the value you're providing speak for itself. There's things that you know that your clients don't, and even just sometimes a simple definition of, clarifying what's the difference between a survey and a blueprint. That's wow. What did
Mm,
that cost me?
mm,
2 minutes of my time to put up a little camera and put it out there.
mhm,
That's not stealing anything from me, but it's getting me onto a platform where I had somebody call in a couple weeks ago. They were like, "Hey, I saw one of your shorts on YouTube, and you really know your stuff." And it was a video about, it might have been, the electrical certificate, or what's a survey, or how do you measure a window the proper way for building code, right? And my Instagram videos automatically go onto YouTube as shorts, and that was all it took. He's like, "Wow, you're out there, you know your stuff. I want to hire you." Like,
mhm.
great, thanks.
Yeah.
So, yeah, have a purpose, and also just do it. Be intentional, make it happen.
Yeah. No, I love that. The line between what am I doing and do it. Like it's perfect.
Right. And for me, it was like, okay, I made a social media page years ago. I would throw something on there maybe, I don't know, once every couple months, but it's like, okay, I don't have enough time to make the consistency happen, but when it is happening, it's good. And
Yeah.
so we have a team member dedicated to it now, and it's working really well.
Yeah, and see, I think also like when I see you and Dom doing it, like your personalities are coming through, it's informative. And also there's a piece of it where like I don't really see any other expediters. I don't see any other mold guys doing this content, like it's not coming up in my feed. And I think that's the one thing about real estate is there's so many real estate agents and there are so many people making the same like evergreen content.
Mm,
And then it's like, okay, who's it going to get in front of? And that I find like I see a realtor come up my feed, I'm like I'm just blowing past it, like I don't want to hear it. And I'm sure there are people getting bombarded with that stuff. So I have to be very conscious of not doing those things that I'm
mm,
seeing. Like I almost try and avoid whatever I see like viral realtors doing as like their video trends because it's like I don't want to come
mm.
across like that. I want to come
And
across
you're
like
not.
me.
Sorry to cut you off. And you're not, because you're mixing up your content. You're doing some history. You're adding the sports thing. You're talking about different
Good.
towns. It's not always the real estate that you're putting out.
Yeah, and that's because aside from I think what at bottom line I think everybody loves like I think why people love your videos is because you're like getting into the nitty gritty of the house and you're showing like where mold can be and these crazy mushrooms growing out like it's insane like you don't expect to see so you're looking at it and you're like oh my god this and it's because it's not really you like your voice in the background and you might be like doing the camera up here thing to show but for the most part you're just like look at that mold, look at that, oh my goodness that is mold, that's a lot like and it's crazy because you're getting like this inside behind the scenes look and that to me like that the real estate stuff I'll always post like if there's a great house like I'm going to show it because it's cool because people like looking at that but overall it's like oh let me tell you the difference between a pre-approval and a it's like I could see this 900 times and I don't need to see it again. All right, now with that said I'll move into the last piece because I'm sure you all have to get going as fun as this has been but I'll let you start this time.
Sure.
um we talked about successful like just out of nowhere successful content. um do you have any or what let me share first because this is I should set the tone for this question. um it's not fair to put all of you on the spot for this but we're going to talk about perhaps mistake that you've made in content or content that you put out that you're like ugh like that didn't come out so good. So I think my least favorite piece of content, I could probably find it. Oh, so while I'm doing these like AI videos about like history and everything, so I made another one about the Battle of Fort Salonga because Fort Salonga and Kings Park, there was an actual fort there, and the colonials took it from the British in one night. I made that reel. I had cool AI like soldiers that like it looked pretty good. And I'm like, oh, this is gonna be a great one. Like all the Kings Park people are gonna share this. This is gonna be cool, blah, blah, blah. It had like 900 views. It's like, what happened here? Like this was along the same theme as like the bull that, it's town history and everything, and figured people would get behind it. And it was just an absolute dud. I don't know exactly what made it a dud at this point. Like I haven't really dug into it, but it was just a complete flop, total waste of time. So from that point on, I was like, all right, I need to rethink how I'm going to do. If I do like a historical video or something, I really need to be um precise, or have a different game
Mhm.
plan going into it. So is there another piece of content that you were like, it came out and you were just like, ugh, like now I hate it, or it didn't come out as good as you wanted, anything along those guidelines?
I fortunately cannot think of any at the moment, but that's
That's
also
good.
because I'm newer in the posting game, so that's a sign of me just not posting enough and getting out there enough to have something that's like, oh boy, we should delete that one. Um, uh, the typos, the spelling errors, you put the wrong phone number on something, those things, definitely proofread. So I've had a couple of those fumbles where it's like, oh man, that was a waste.
Hmm.
Um, yeah. Hopefully though, maybe soon I'll have some bigger fumbles because I'm just going to be posting more and more.
Well, look, it's not something you should aspire to, I
No,
think. Like,
no, definitely not. Right? It's the old, if you're not failing, you're not trying hard enough, maybe. I don't know.
maybe. Hey, look,
I'm not aspiring to it. I want to be I'm kind of a perfectionist, and that's part of the reason why I don't do as much, because I like things to be done
yeah,
well
yeah.
and accurate and perfect. But
Yeah.
anyway,
Well, I think there is something to be said about that, though. Really, like Dom is working because Dom is pumping out content, but it's also he's pumping out really good content.
yeah.
Whereas, like, if you're not pumping out good content all the time, I think it could have a negative effect. Like, I was putting out a lot of content and I was gaining no traction, like nothing was happening. And for like over a year. And now in the last 2 months, I've doubled my following all
Mm,
organically. And it's like I'm not posting nearly as much on Instagram. Like once a week I'm posting, but it is more shareable. It's that kind of stuff.
hmm
So I think there's something to be said for that too. I think at this point, like Dom has just kind of mastered it. And like he's putting out his stuff and it's good and it's constantly just popping up. So there's that side of it too. But Jeff, anything that you've like not regretted posting, but you've posted and you've just been like, oh, like why did that do so bad? Anything like that?
This is kind of a funny one. I don't know if this really answers the question, but I'll throw it out there anyway. After my first time on your podcast, I was so jazzed up about it. Um, I thought it was the coolest opportunity. It was my first time being, a guest on a podcast as a business person. And then I think you had told me about the app that kind of like um, cuts the podcast apart and can
Oh,
put the
Opus
captions over.
Pro.
Yes,
Yeah.
Opus. So yeah, I got, you sent me the clip of our podcast, then I downloaded Opus and I just started going down, pulling up every clip that I possibly could. And then I'd say for the next month or two, that was like the only type of content that I was posting on my social media. It was just like me and you like talking back and forth, or like a couple sound bites of something
I
that I
don't
thought.
make content go well, Jeff. Like I kill content. When
Well,
AI is on there, if I'm not on there, it does great.
so yeah, I'm like, anything that I thought was like a cool tidbit, or like I just like to hear myself talk sometimes, I think, is I will pull the clip and throw it on my page, and then I like look back after a month and I'm like, man, like I didn't, and honestly I didn't even think anything of it. It was my wife who finally decided to share her feedback, and she's like, babe, like, you're promoting yourself as a social media guy, and like all you have been posting is you on this podcast like nonstop. And I'm like, man, I guess you're right. Like, I guess it's not, maybe it wasn't as big of a deal as I thought it was. And so, yeah, that was a kind of a lesson that I needed to learn, is like, mixing it up, mixing up the format, mixing up the content, and in some, sometimes delivering value, sometimes delivering entertainment, sometimes, just sharing something that is, shareable or whatever that might be. So yeah, I think early on, I learned that it's important, to mix it up and put yourself in a position to see what's working or what's not. In that, kind of little bit of time. I was only giving one type of content an opportunity to perform. And so that was something that I learned along the way early on.
Variety is key.
Hmm.
Tom, what about you? Anything that you like thought would be great and it was just like a complete dud?
Yeah, I mean, I've had posts that I thought would do good and didn't. And sometimes afraid to post certain things, like being personal. I decided to make a post. I had cancer a while back, and I made a post about it, and I was like, should I even put this online? But I know it's a personal story, and at the same time, you don't want people to think like, oh, he's putting his cancer story out there for attention. You
Oh
know, I
man.
was like, which I'm
Mm,
not, but I just wanted to share my ultimate story of it was, respect your health because you could lose your business, and telling my story that way. So I felt some fear, putting a piece out like that, or because I don't really tell anybody, and now here I am telling everybody. So that was a little
Well, not that
scary
many
as
people
well.
watch, but no, I appreciate you sharing that. I didn't know that. That's crazy.
mm.
That was scary for me. I felt fear, do I put it out there? And I actually had the piece of content made for a few weeks, and I just was contemplating it for a while, well, whether I should put it there.
That's funny though, because that speaks to your character because like you didn't want people thinking you were using it as a driver of business when your intention of putting that out there was to help other people, which is what you do all the time. And yeah, I totally get that. It's like you don't want because you know that there will be people who have that comment or have that
Of course, yeah. There's
or
always somebody being negative on the internet.
yeah, like I mean, geez, it's crazy how nasty and just awful some people will get. So yeah, I totally understand. But yeah, thank you for sharing. I'm glad you're good now.
Yeah, me too. Thank you.
Yeah. Um, that's crazy. But all right. Well, I think overall, the insights that you guys have given us have been really, really, really helpful. And I love sharing all this stuff with you guys because like to me, this is my networking. So I've been able to connect and meet with really cool people that I've been like, these people are really cool on Instagram. Like, let me try and talk to them. And it's like, oh wow,
Hmm.
like they are really cool. So it's been super fun. This information is great. And yeah, you guys are just you're killing it with your brands. I mean, it's popping up for my stuff all the time. Like it's consistent and you're just doing great work. So I feel like anybody
Thank
who's thinking about or it's starting anything and jumping in and just wants to do social media, like there's so much helpful stuff out there that they could just learn from watching what all of you are doing.
you.
So well done. And just I could see in like you just from talking because I've obviously talked to all of you now for a long time too. Like you are the same people on your Instagram, but you're also like good people. Like it comes through in your Instagram and it comes through just in general conversation. So your clients are lucky to have you. I could say
Thanks. Thanks.
that.
Thanks for that, John.
Hey, no,
Thank you
absolutely.
so
And
much.
I don't tell lies. So um I don't BS. That's probably one of the reasons why I don't get as many
Appreciate you.
real estate listings as I would like because I'm a little too honest.
Hey, that's
Um
all right.
But
But
you're being
thank you all
yourself.
for coming on again. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I said you're being yourself, though.
Every day, like it's all I
Yep.
could do. That's all we any of us can do.
Mhm.
All right. Well, listen, if anybody has any parting words of advice or messages for someone starting a social media, we'll end it like that on a good note. One piece of advice for anybody who's starting their social media channel as a business. Jeff, you're going first.
Imperfect action.
Hey, there you go.
Just start and be consistent with it.
Love it.
And you learn and you evolve as you go.
Nice. Mitch, what about you?
Yeah, I'd say provide value, that is giving people the information, not not industry information so much, that the answers to their problems though. What is it that you do that sets you apart? And you don't have to say, this is why I'm different from everybody else, or others are going to tell you that. You don't have to put people down. Just be who be providing the value that you do, and let the customer or the client's experience speak for itself.
Love that. Dom, we'll wrap it up with you. You get the last word.
I would say have fun with it. That's going to make it easy for
That's
you.
good.
Don't make it such a big task for yourself. Don't get overwhelmed. Have a good time and let it flow.
All your advice was good. I'm going to say that was probably the best piece of advice. Have fun with it. Yeah,
Have
enjoy it.
fun. I love it.
You know, who's going to want to deal with us if we're not enjoying ourselves, right? Ultimately.
That's right. Yep.
All right. Well, listen, everybody, thank you very much for for coming on to the second Keeping It Local All-Star panel. You guys are definitely all-stars, and you're not number 2. Okay. There is no status order here. All right. It was just timing wise the way this worked out. But thank you again for coming on, and looking forward to talking to you all again soon.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
See you guys.